Hey, hello,
Hey.
everybody. Hey,
Hello,
what's
everybody.
up?
Welcome back to this podcast.
Hey,
What is up? It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm feeling kind of sleepy. Just drank a little bit of Red Bull. My phone just went off. Who loves me? Nobody loves me. Just Amazon saying, hey, your order's on the way. And
Amazon loves you.
Amazon does love me. Jeff Bezos. It's because I made that video about his new game just a few days ago. That new MMO thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the New World. Do you know about
the
New
New
World?
World. I know a little about New World.
It's all right.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks interesting. It's just like, I don't know. It's kind of lacking that like pop that I think a lot of MMOs need.
yeah. I mean, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I'll always give something a try before I'm like, yeah.
yeah,
But we'll see. I
yeah.
think they're still like developing it anyway.
Well, how have you been doing for the past week or so? How have things been going? Any exciting updates or news?
Um, Honestly, not really. I mainly just been going along. Went to the grocery store like twice.
Mm-hmm.
Bought some stuff, sanitized literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of played some WoW beta, played some Valorant.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new Counter Strike Riot game. That's pretty fun.
Nice.
And then I actually played some old GameCube games,
Mm-hmm.
which was really fun too.
I saw that you played the original Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely a like nostalgic flashback because like I forgot so much stuff about the original one. Tom Nook is like kind of a dick.
Yep.
He's just like, yeah, what do you want? You want to move to my town? Fine, I'll let you come here if you're gonna pay me back. If you don't pay me, I'm gonna send my goons after you. And then he's like, haha, just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
But you know he's not kidding.
Yeah.
So, plus it's a lot of just bare bones stuff. But I mean, it paved the way for the modern game. So
Mm-hmm.
that's still pretty good. And then I was gonna play some other GameCube games. I actually ordered Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door because I played Paper Mario 64, and then everyone's like, "Gotta play Thousand Year Door, gotta play Thousand Year Door." So I'm like, "Fine, I'll play Thousand Year Door."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna do that, and then I got Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. Love me some Mario Golf.
Nice. You've been buying a lot of games.
Yeah, and old games.
I've just been buying a
Uh,
lot of books.
oh,
Yeah.
tell me about your books then.
Well, finish your game collection.
All right, so then I have the ones I have, which are Smash Bros. Melee,
Mhm.
Mario Party 4, Madden '04,
Nice.
and the Animal Crossing. So I got like 6 games now.
Nice. I'll tell you one
Yeah.
thing. It's kind of expensive, but I am tempted to buy a capture cable. That way I can hook my Switch up to my computer
Oh,
or just any console for that matter.
yeah.
Because I don't have one of those things. Because, well, actually, no. Back in the day when I got a PS4, which I only played twice, it literally was a massive waste of money. Or PS3. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was a few years ago, like 2 years ago. I got it, and it was when God of War came out, and I bought a capture card thing so that way I could stream, myself playing like God of War or like, console games. That'd be fun, right?
Yeah.
But I discovered that after my little like cable cord thing adapter arrived, there was like this desync between like my audio and the video or something. I just remember there was a massive sync issue.
Mm.
And I was like what's the deal? And I went Googling around and it was like, oh no, you can't get that like capture thing. You have to get the S edition, like the fancy like edition thing, because which costs like $300 more, and the thing was already like 200. And I was like, oh my god, like I'm gonna spend like $500 to stream God of War to hear a dude or a big old man say "boy" over and over. Like I don't think so. So I gave up on that idea. But I've kind of been tempted lately because I'm assuming by now, they're probably not as expensive as they used to be. And it probably would be a worthwhile investment because I'm going to be real. I think it'd be a lot of fun to stream really chill games like Animal Crossing on my computer, and
Yeah.
also it'd be fun to play like The Binding of Isaac. I Switch like account thing on here, and there's a lot I'd like to do, honestly. Like the Switch is, in my opinion, the Switch is the best console ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like it's actually amazing how good I just love the fact that like it's both a mobile console and like a,
It's
like a standalone console.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I remember I bought it as a it was back when I was with my ex. I actually bought it for her and for some people that were going to stay at my house for a little bit. And I was like, "Oh, this will be something that they can like, play with and they can enjoy together and blah blah blah." I'm not
Mhm.
interested in that stupid Switch. And then they never touched it. And so I was like, well, I mean, I paid for this thing, so I'm going to play it. So I started playing on it. And I was like, this thing's incredible. And then I went to Europe one year and I took the Switch with me on the airplane. And I was like, this thing's incredible. And just, I love the Switch. Like, I'm shocked at how much I love that damn thing, but I just don't play it enough. And
Yeah.
I would play it more, but it's like, I kind of want to stream it. Because
Yeah.
I kind of have this opinion nowadays where if I'm going to sit back and play some games, I kind of want to just stream it rather than just playing on my own.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because otherwise, I don't know, it's fun to like talk to the people as I play.
Yeah, there's there's some games where I like to do that. Some I just like to play by myself. But even like playing Animal Crossing, like sometimes I'll stream and be like, hey, I'm just gonna chill out and fish. Other times I'll just play off stream or whatever. It's nice just being able to do either one.
Yeah. What were we talking
But
about? Oh, yeah, my books.
oh yeah, your books.
Yeah. My books. So this kind of harkens back to like a few podcast episodes ago. I talked about it was the episode where we were talking about life as a self-employed person. And I actually made mention that, oh yeah, like it's really important to like read books that sort of relate to the field that you're playing in and that you're working in. So, I mean, they're not very interesting books for most people. Most of the books that I've bought recently and that I'm currently reading have to do with like developing leadership skills, books on faith. I'm really enjoying the book I'm reading right now, like a whole like chapter about like faith and what that means. Not like in the religious sense, but just to have faith. Essentially, the idea is nothing is possible without faith. That's like the first element of like any sort of success or any sort of goal accomplishment in life. Because if you don't believe that it's possible, it is always impossible. And so like from faith will then come passion, and then from passion will come your creativity, and then your creativity, if you put all this into action, that's when the ball starts rolling. That's not a quote, by the way. I'm just kind of talking up my ass.
Yeah.
But that's just something that I've been reading a little bit about. And so not very interesting things to probably most of the people listening, but it's what I read. I try to read every single day for at least like nowadays I'm reading for probably like 45 minutes a day instead of my usual 30, just because I'm really enjoying it. And I'm always trying to find like new subjects to explore. Like reading about leadership is actually a whole new field for me. So it's interesting to read about it and to sort of relate a little bit to some of the things that the books talk about. So yeah.
I still want to read more. It's one of those things where I always want to read more, and I just need to put aside the time to actually do it, because it's like I have the time, but whenever I'm like, what should I do right now? I never think like I need to read. It's like my brain goes to like, maybe I should clean, maybe I should make a video, maybe I should play a game, like whatever. But I never think like, oh, I should read.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I know I believe you are a bit too. It's sort of like if you're not working on something, you feel like you should be.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that in a previous podcast thing.
It's not even like I'm like working. I have to work at something to make money. It could be anything. Like I have to clean the house.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I got to
Just
work like doing anything.
you just gotta be active. You gotta be doing something that
Yeah.
matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like for me, like nowadays, because I've been reading so much, I sort of procrastinate a lot just to read more. Like, I actually did 2 reading sessions today when I technically shouldn't have done that. I went to, me and my friend a few days ago, we went to the downtown area of my town and we just kind of walked around there because around where I live, they've closed all of the parks because of the whole COVID-19 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, you can go to the parks, you just can't park in them anymore.
Right.
So there's nowhere to park at this one park we usually go to like walk around and sit and read and stuff. So I was like, well, now what are we going to do? And so we ended up going to downtown where I live, and we walked around there. And I had never been I mean, I've been through downtown. I've driven through there plenty of times, but I've never like walked around. And
Mm-hmm.
we found so much cool stuff, like so many cool seating areas and like just areas where people hung out. We found a brewery. That was awesome. And
Oh, whoa.
I didn't know about that. And it was just really cool. And so we sat out there in the sunlight for about 45 minutes and we were like reading, just having a good time. Then we walked around more. And then today, that's exactly what I did. This morning, I did a recording with Brutal Static, a little podcast thing that'll come out on my main channel soon. And then I went there. Actually, no, I went there before the recording. I sat down on a bench underneath a bunch of oak trees, and I just read my book a little bit, drank my coffee, and then it looked like it was going to rain. Came home, did that recording, and then once the recording was over, I looked outside, and it was just bright sunshine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like look at the sun, like a complete flip from when I was reading in the park earlier or like in the downtown area. So I got in my car and I actually went back to the same spot and got out and went and found another like little area and sat down and I just kept reading. And it was great.
Oh.
And then I came home and watched 1917 and now here I am talking to you.
1917. What's that?
That's that war movie that just came out, based in like World War I, with the 2 dudes trying to find like or trying to like reach the battalion before they walk into like the German ambush.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
The
it's like
trailer.
it's like the movie that got a lot of attention because there's like just like 2 shots in the entire movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like it's pretty bizarre, but I did enjoy the movie, although because it's like one continuous shot. And this might just be because, like, like I've spent like a good chunk of my life kind of studying film and all this stuff. I sort of, there are scenes in it where it's just kind of like they're just filling time, or passing time because if like, for example, let me explain this. So they're trying to go from point A to point B and it's one camera shot like the entire way from point A to point B. So what do? They just talk about stuff. And I'm just like, all right, yeah, okay, I get the idea. So I'm like, just get to point B already. But it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Huh.
Yeah, I'll never watch it again. It wasn't that good, but it was pretty good. I mean, it was like, oh, it was nice.
Yeah.
So, what do you, like, let me ask you this, since we're on this, like, topic of reading and whatnot, like, when you do have free time, and I think you answered this in the writing podcast we did, but what do you usually read? And what is something that you've never read before or like a subject that you want to like look into?
Oh, that's a good question. I typically read like business, or I'd read mainly like business books, and I'd read like self-help books or like that type of thing where it's like ways to improve I guess attributes, right? But I'd like to read more like fantasy. Like I've read The Hobbit, and I've read like some other, I've read like Brandon Sanderson stuff, like some of his things. But I'd like to read more fantasy
Mm-hmm.
because that's kind of what I want to write. So you obviously want to read what you're going to write so you gain more knowledge about it.
Hmm. Why do you, out of curiosity, so you said that you read a lot of like self-help and like business books as well.
Mhm.
Why do you read those? And I'll tell you why.
Um,
Like, yeah. I wonder if your answer is the same as mine.
I would say, well, self help I used to read more of back, like I'd say in like the maybe like 2010 to 2013,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt just kind of I wasn't really confident in myself.
Okay.
But I've read less and less over the years, but I still have a lot of the books.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of things like there's how to win friends and influence people. There's like how to, gain confidence, how to like all these types of things. And now I feel like I've hit a point where I'm happy with myself, so I don't really read that as much.
Mm-hmm.
But for marketing stuff, I feel like there's always something to learn with just marketing and even psychology, because psychology ties into marketing. So I like a lot of psychology books as well
Mm-hmm.
because you can just tie in understanding the human brain
Mm-hmm.
with marketing. Because once you understand how somebody thinks, you can figure out ways to market to them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what a lot of advertisers and all these companies do anyway, or it's what they spend a lot of money figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do people think? Why do they want to go on TikTok, and why do they want to go on Twitter? And like, how can you get somebody to look at Twitter and be like, "Ooh, Taco Bell, I'm going to go to Taco Bell," and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always just find it interesting as well. Like, not even just from a business aspect, but just from a like how humans function.
Mm-hmm. My friend Toby, he's really into psychology. Like, he's always reading like psychology books. He finds it to be like deathly fascinating. And I like
Yeah.
psychology too, but I read, just like you, a lot of the same stuff in regards to like marketing and how we respond to different things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I personally really enjoy reading business books and self-help books because I guess I'll start with self-help. Uh, when I was younger, I sort of used to think, and I think like everybody did, or everybody thought this way at one point, that I sort of knew everything.
Yeah.
Like I was the master of myself and I knew it plenty to get by to like lead a successful life and blah, blah, blah. And then some time ago, I read my first like business book slash self-help book. And that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in the day, which I highly recommend to anybody. And that book sort of, there was a numerous things that the author talked about that I had never thought about in my entire life. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know anything. Like, I'm an idiot. And so I started reading more and more about like just all these different subjects and things that I wasn't familiar with, because whenever I read something, it kind of shows me how naive I really am, and that is good. And I sort of like years ago, I developed a little saying that I tend to tell people, like when they come and like, oh, can I get your advice on something, or what do you think I should do? And I tell people, I know what I know, but I also know what I do not know. And self-help books kind of helped with that. And I also think, and maybe you can relate to this too a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
being self-employed and being like my own business owner, sometimes, at least for me, but I can't speak for everybody, you feel a bit lonely because most people don't do what we do.
Right.
Like, they don't work their own schedule or have to deal with thousands of fans like mocking them, or just dealing with feedback every single day, criticisms from like the world every single day, blah 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 blah. And not everybody can relate to that lifestyle. But when I read books that are written by entrepreneurs, whether they're a small business owner or a large business owner, when they talk about things, I know what they're getting at. Like, I know what they're talking about. Like how if you are a natural leader, even in the book that I'm reading now, if you're a natural leader, it is very common to feel lonely in your leadership because most people are not leaders. And to feel lonely in your leadership is actually a good thing. And it's kind of talking about how you can use that feeling of loneliness to make you think and develop new ideas and blah, blah, blah. That's a whole subject by itself. But things like that, it's like I'm reading something from someone who does what I do, but they are more experienced and they have the years and they're passing on the wisdom. And I can relate to it and I really enjoy that. And it's another reason why I enjoy personally talking to other content creators, because we're kind of all on the same wavelength. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. It's kind of like that, it's people tend to hang around people that are like them
Mm-hmm.
because you can relate to those types of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. So it's like, if somebody does what you do, then you can relate to them. If somebody went to a school like your school, you're like, oh, you understand me then. You went to like a private school, like I went to a private school, or like, oh, you worked at McDonald's for a year, I worked at McDonald's for a year. It's like anything that can form some sort of relatability or bond
Mm-hmm.
tends to create a sense of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easier to talk to them about, issues. Like, for example, if somebody's played World of Warcraft for, since it started, you can talk to them about anything and be like, oh my God, remember when this happened? Remember that happened? Like all these things are like, oh, when this game changed, and like you form that bond. But when somebody's like, oh, hey, have you played WoW before? And they're like, no. You're
No.
like, oh,
Yep.
all right. So it's, and even then, even if they're like, oh, I started in, Legion, you'd be like, oh, okay. So you've played some of it. Like you still don't have that, like, dude, remember back when this thing happened?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is just similar experiences. And I guess and it does tie in with like Twitch and YouTube because you experience the same things of like dealing with mean comments or tweets or things, or like dealing with, if like you get a surge of viewership and you're like, woo, and then you get the opposite, and you're like
Mm-hmm.
below average and you're like, oh, and you just like, you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
there, maybe you're running out of ideas or you're burning out, like whatever it is, it ends up uh, being like, man, I want to talk to somebody that's also gone through this because then they'll know how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I read a book like uh, written by a guy who, let's say he owns a bakery, a lot of the things that the baker deals with are the same things that like me and Krendor deal with. Like you brought up that example of, hey, maybe you're doing really, really good one month and you're like, wow, I'm on fire. Like my bakery's doing great. This is amazing. But then next month, Corona happens and now no
Yeah.
one's coming to your bakery and you're losing money. And it's like, oh no, well, what do I do? Or just something happens and you're not getting the business that you used to. And you got to sit there and think, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Like what's going on? And so when I read in a book someone talking about those experiences, I know what they're talking about because I've gone through that, but in on a different platform, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I mean that's why I enjoy reading stuff like that. It's that reminder that you are not alone, and it's also a little bit of a seeking counsel from those with more experience than me. I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, and
So
I think everybody kind of needs that too.
yeah.
Just like the mentor. It's a reason it's like not a stereotype, but like a trope,
Hmm.
right? Like the old mentor, like the old wizard, where like teaching the guy about, like helping to develop his skills. And it's
Hmm.
because that's like a thing that happens in real life. It happens in sports, it happens in entertainment, it happens in like everything.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's one of those things where I think when you're younger, you tend to have that, you're kind of, it's weird because you're a kid but you're an adult at the same time and
Mm-hmm.
you're still developing. Like I don't think I even developed fully until I was like 26, 25,
Hmm.
in terms of like my, my like brain,
Hmm. My brain.
uh my brain, because that's kind of when, uh I don't know, it's just I could just sense around that time like, hey, you know what, I feel like my brain's done developing now. That doesn't mean you stop learning or anything, but it
Mm.
just feels like you fully grasp everything you need to. Because when you're like 19, for example, I was so dumb still. I was very arrogant. I was very entitled. And I would still be, even looking back in like my old videos and stuff, I can still see that in me when I like listen to those and things.
Hmm.
And it's not like it's not like the worst thing ever, but it's like a part of me from my past that I don't really like.
Mm. I've just always been like, I've just always been like pretty big nerd. I mean, well, nerd, if that's not even the right word. Like my YouTube channel and everything really just started because I when I was younger, before YouTube, I used to make like short videos using my parents' video camera, and then I started making videos on YouTube, and I was making machinima, not because it was profitable, but just because people enjoyed them, and most importantly, I enjoyed them. And then I
Mm.
started talking about the game because I wanted to, and then I would upload videos of me playing the tin whistle or like the drone flute or something, just because I wanted to. And I've always kind of had this mentality of you should never be ashamed to express yourself and like who you are. Um, and I've sort of just kind of maintained that over the years. I think that's one thing that's never changed about me, which I'm happy about. But I definitely can relate to the whole like mind finishing its development. I was thinking about that when you said it. I was like, has my brain finished growing? Because I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so. I found that I've become a lot more patient over the years.
Mm.
Like, I used to be a terrible listener. And I didn't care like what anyone had to say. It was just me. Like, I just want to hear my own voice. But
Right.
now I think I'm pretty good at it. Like, I can really sit down and I can actually have like a discussion with someone, or better yet, like a debate of ideas, and I can really listen to them and be like, okay, I see what you're saying. And because that's a skill that I got called out on a long time ago, years ago. Someone was like, oh, you're a real bad listener. And I was like,
Mm.
and so that's something I've always been aware of ever since then. So, you know, there's
Yeah,
some
I
fun
think
facts about me.
I think obviously everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses as you grow into being who you are. And even people that just, there's like 60-year-old people that are terrible listeners and they're impatient. And, I mean, you can just go outside and see a billion people like that.
Hmm.
But it's, I think you can generally see the people that have worked on becoming a better person.
Hmm.
And I think it's easy to identify them. And I think they tend to do better in life because once you start seeking improvement of yourself, that's when you start meeting more people and becoming more productive and just like becoming a better person and a better you.
Hmm.
That sounds like it could be a book in itself. A better person, a better you.
Yeah, it probably is a book, to be real.
Yeah.
I I got some advice like a long time ago from a book I read, and I do not remember which one it was, but it introduced me to I believe it was called the 3% rule, where all it is like, all right, we all know about investing in like the stock market and investing in real estate and investing in this and that and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But what about investing in you? And so, because you are like the most important asset in anything, in life in general, and your
Mm.
mind is the most powerful computer in the world, and you need to feed it and grow it and make it better and give it software upgrades and yada, yada, yada. What about that investment? And so, this 3% rule was what you should do is you should look at, for example, your yearly income or even your monthly income and say, okay, what is 3% of my, let's say, monthly income? Say it's $30. All right, that $30 you need to invest in improving as a person. And it could be buying a book that teaches you a new skill. It could be a gym membership. It could be anything, just anything, or going to a seminar. to learn something, attending a class, anything. And that's an investment into yourself. And that's very important. And that's what I do personally. So I usually buy like 2 or 3 books a month, and then I'll read them. So, and I actually would have gone to a few seminars like here in Charlotte, but unfortunately, because of the corona, everything is shut down. But
What would you like going back to when you were
a baby.
maybe like yeah, maybe like 21.
Okay.
What would you say aside from like listening, what were things that you've like vastly changed since then?
Certainly a lot. A lot of it's very like personal, that I wouldn't talk about like on a podcast. But one is listening, definitely. Another one is I accepted the reality, and this is a really hard pill for some people to swallow. And some people are going to hear me say this, and they might actually get angry at me for saying it. I really accepted the pill that everything is your fault. Everything. Like, you quite literally hold the keys to your own fate, and you decide where you go with it. I had a conversation with somebody one time, and they bluntly told me, if you're not making $2 million a year, you chose not to make that. Not that guy. Not that guy. You chose it. Whoop. Everything's your fault. And that was really hard at first for me to accept, because there are some things that, because the argument against this is they'll say, oh, what about, things like, fully out of your control? Like, if you get hit by a bolt of lightning. Yes, there are some things that are out of your control entirely, but most things aren't. Even some things that you think are out of your control, you actually were in control of the situation the entire time. But what's most important is, even if something negative happens to you, you are in control of how you respond to it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point, because there's I think I look at it as like, some people start the game on easy and some people start it on like insane difficulty, and you don't get to choose what you start on, but it is what you're starting on. And so it's like, you can play the game, and eventually, there's people that start on easy. Maybe they got like rich parents, maybe they have a good family and they could do whatever they want, but they still waste all their potential because they're lazy, they're arrogant, they just don't use anything. They end up just like doing drugs and ODing in like a dumpster or some shit. While there could be someone that takes that opportunity and creates a successful business and goes on to do it. And then vice versa, there could be somebody that has like an abusive home growing up and they don't have anything, and they're living out of their car, and they're like, this is unfair. But then, they start working hard and doing things, and before you know it, they've like created a business, and they're, employing people, and then they're a millionaire. So, I mean, they end up doing better than the person who started with the easier life, just because, they had a goal and a vision. They kept working towards it. And, it's not always going to be that way, but it's, I think a vast majority of the time, people put in whatever they put in is what they get.
Yeah, I mean, I could think of like a million responses to that question if I dig down deep into my experiences over the past several years and think about how they changed me as a person. But since we don't have that much time, I'm actually just going to throw the same question back at you.
All right.
So 21.
I would say at 21, I'd say I was good at listening, but I was bad at understanding.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because I would listen to people and they would tell me their opinions and their things, and I'd be like, okay. But then I'd be like, well, I see what they're saying. They're just wrong.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, they don't get it as much as I do because I'm smart. That is, they don't see it as well as I can see it. And then I think what I've gotten better at is kind of just understanding where someone comes from, because somebody might think something and people be like, oh, they're dumb, they think that thing. But you think, well, why do they think that way? Like, did they have something happen to them? Were they raised a certain way? Did, like, there's like a billion different things that can happen to make that person think that thing. And a lot of times it's just emotions getting tied into logic. So they're like, I feel this way because, I got yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, well, you start like working it out. It's almost like therapeutic in a way
Mm-hmm.
because you're kind of breaking everything down. And I think once people start breaking things down, it becomes easier to see why people think the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a lot better at that. I think part of that was just making videos, ironic enough, because I would make scripts and I'd see how people react to different things I put into the script. And I'd be like, oh, people like, this type of thing, right? Like when I show the types of players in a dungeon, people really respond well to that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, why is that, right? Like, why do people want to be like, oh, I know a person like that? Because there's some sort of relatability to it because everybody can relate to like, oh, there's the go guy, right? That's the guy that's like impatient, and everybody knows an impatient person. Mm-hmm. And so if you display it in kind of an overly, I don't know, just kind of like a goofy way, it shows that like, I don't know, that's what a lot of humor is actually. It's just displaying common things in goofy ways. Yeah, it's relatability.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing I learned. And then even just doing my fishing series where I interviewed people, because I would watch all these interviews of people, and I hated the way people interviewed because they would take these lists and be like, question number 1. And then they'd, be like, what's your favorite color? And they'd be like, oh, my favorite color is blue. And they'd be like, okay, question number 2. And I'm like, well, why is his favorite color blue? You didn't even ask him.
Yeah.
Or like, you'd be like, oh, what's your favorite food or something? They like, there's no follow-up questions. And so to me, like actively listening and kind of being curious about the other person is what makes a good interview. And so whenever I would fish with people, I would always try to like actively listen and find points where I could just dig a little deeper, because I think that's what good listening is, at least from my point of view, is like just trying to dig deeper and show that you understand someone. Because if somebody's like, oh, I had a bad day, you could be like, why do you have a bad day? And they'd be like, oh, my friend at work got really mad and like started yelling at me. And you could be like, oh, that sucks, and then move on. Or you could be like, well, why'd they get mad? Why'd they do this? And you start really breaking it down and being like, well, is there any control over that situation? Could you have done something different? Could they have like done something different? Like you can go a billion different ways, but it's a matter of like just digging deeper and kind of understanding them and where they're coming from.
It also helps you like make better connections with people too, because if you show how do I want to word this? If you show that you are understanding, or at least trying to understand to the best of your ability, it makes people like you more. Like I can talk about, like, for example, like my friend Toby, I mentioned him earlier. He doesn't do what I do as a job. He doesn't do what you do. So when I talk about frustrations, like, I got to deal with this, or I have to do this, or like whatever, he can only relate so much. But the point is he will do his best to understand where I'm coming from. And when he talks to me about his job, I don't work in his line of work. So it's the exact same thing and the other way around. And it's one reason why we enjoy each other's company so much. So, because we can just talk and share and rant. And then we both know that, the other person is going to try to get on that level as much as possible. And then we just chill out and like smoke together, and it's great.
Yeah, I think somebody just trying or like showing that they care is like another big one, because you can even put that in like anything in life, like anything where you see someone's actually trying, even if they're not the best. They could be like, playing League of Legends and maybe they're like not doing great, but you can tell they're like actually trying. So you're just like, hey man, it's all right, just keep it up. Everyone's got bad games, whatever. Instead of the guy who's just like, shitty team, like kind of just gives up and does whatever. And that attitude kind of spreads out across the rest of the team. Like, well, this guy's not trying, I'm not going to try. That's kind of another thing I learned, is how mimicky our emotions are. Like, you can see somebody
Oh,
that's
dude.
sad and you start feeling sad, or you see someone happy and kind of working, and you're like, dude, that makes me happy and want to work. You know?
Oh, dude. If there's one lesson that I have learned since 21 that relates to exactly what you just said, uh, humans have become way. This is a huge speech by itself. Don't get me started. But humans, especially people in society today, have become way too familiar with the word impossible. And the funny thing about the word impossible is it's contagious. If I have an idea and I say, I'm sitting in front of, it's me, you, and 5 randoms, 5 people listening to like this conversation right now, and I say, I've got a plan. We are going to start a lawn mowing business. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to make, by the end of this year, we're going to make $500,000. As soon as one person, and there's always that one person, they'll be like, that's impossible. There's no way you could do that. Suddenly, everybody thinks it's impossible. And then even you, the person who had the idea, will start to doubt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah. And I have found, like, the people that I hang out with personally, we kind of have a saying in my friend group that, well, it's not a saying. It's just that the word impossible is not a part of our vocabulary. Like, oh, you want a giant YouTube channel? Do it. You want to start a lawn mowing business? Do it. Like, 2 of my friends, they're starting a real estate business right now. Do it. It's not impossible. You know, I'm right there like, yeah, I'm backing them up. You know, and they back me up and so on and so forth. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an attitude of like, I'll never be able to do that type of thing, especially even with like streaming or YouTube or anything like that. There's so many people be like, yeah, you know, I tried it.
Yeah, you already
And
lost.
yeah, and then they've already given up.
Yep, you didn't even make it to the starting line.
Yeah.
You said I can't win the race before you even got to the damn starting line and actually saw the race in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's how people think.
And a lot of the times it's just out of not even just laziness, but out of just like, it's not worth my time. It almost feels like.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, why even start if it's going to fail? And so it's like, well, you've already failed then.
And see, that is where the faith comes in. You got to know that you can do it. Going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation. If you're like, I'm just going to fail, you don't have faith. You got to have faith in yourself. You are a weapon. You are a titan. You are the colossus. Without faith, William would not have crossed the English Channel. Faith that he would be king. Without faith, Caesar wouldn't have crossed the Rubicon if he didn't believe in himself and his dream to become a quote-unquote king of Rome.
Would you say that faith in yourself is just confidence?
They're sort of interchangeable words, but I would say no. I would say from faith comes confidence. Because if I genuinely believe in myself, or I genuinely believe in another person, if I'm like, I know that this person can do it if they put their mind to it, I then become confident that they will do it. But I have to I have to believe it first. And I have to eliminate the word impossible or can't or cannot, like, from my vocabulary. And that's the one thing, I think the one lesson that I've learned, especially, like, I used to just be some kid whose, like, parents, you know, they couldn't afford to send me to college or anything. And then I paid my own way through college, and then I traveled like all over the world, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. I did missionary work, and I made my own YouTube channel, and I'm self-employed, and blah, blah, blah. And I met all these cool people that used to be like my heroes, like growing up as a kid, and I won like BlizzCon movie contests, and I'm like, dude, nothing's impossible. All you need to do is just have some faith in yourself. And then,
I mean, think about those people that do have that, and they are, you know, they have faith in themselves, they're confident, they're positive. It's like it's almost like it radiates from them.
Oh yeah. And then the last thing that I've learned, people, this is a little bit of a speech. Might go on for about 2 minutes. But I
All
think
right.
this is really important, and maybe you don't need to hear this, and maybe I don't need to hear it again, but maybe somebody listening needs to hear this. Everybody wants something, right? Everybody
Hmm.
wants the new car, or the new pool, or the new television, or the new video game. Everything that you want is typically a lie. It is a lie that you are telling to yourself over and over and over. Because let's be real here. The only things that we actually want are the things that we need to survive. We need food, we need shelter, we need water, rest, reproduce for those of us that, are sexual, I guess. And that's pretty much it. Beyond that, everything else is just a lie. You don't need the new Tesla truck. You don't need the plasma TV. So when you say, oh, I want this, are you going to want it in 8 months? What about 8 days? What about in 8 minutes? Are you still going to want it? Probably not. It's a lie. So what you need to do is, if you want to achieve something, you need to drop the mentality of I want, and you need to embrace a mentality of not I want, but I must. There is no choice. I have to get the Tesla truck. There is no future that exists where I do not have the Tesla truck. But then, what will happen? You have to go through this process. But then what's going to happen, you're going to realize, is that if you look at the top of the mountain and you say, I must reach the top of the mountain, then everything that is not the peak does not matter, because it's not the goal. And when you what ends up happening is, I've read these books and people will say, oh, develop the must mindset, or something like it. And this is something I learned about on my own. Like, I came to my own conclusions on this years ago. But what ends up happening is you become very, very depressed, because anything that is not the peak doesn't matter. And so what do you do to succeed at life? It's very simple. This is how you do it, in my opinion, is my conclusion. First, identify what must I do. What must I do? Maybe you say, I must make $1 million. Okay? I must make $1 million. There's no future that exists where you do not have that $1 million in your bank account. But how do you do it? You reinforce it with, what do I want to do that will take me to the must. The wants must reinforce the must. Because if you say, I want to make $1 million, or I'm going to make $1 million, but you keep going back to your shitty job as a cashier, it's going to be a miserable, miserable climb. But if you say, I want to make $1 million, and you do it through your love of writing, because you want to write books, then suddenly it's not a grind anymore. It's not a mountain. It's just an adventure from point A to point B. And it's just a journey of fulfillment, because you're not only getting to do what you want to do, but you're also accomplishing what you must do. And that's how I approach things. So like for me, I have financial goals in my life, and I have general goals in my life. And then I just think, well, what do I want to do that will achieve these goals? One thing that I really want to do is real estate. I think it sounds like fun. So I'm getting my toes in real estate a little bit because I think it's fun. I like making videos, so that's what I do. I like streaming, so that's what I do. And it takes me towards the goal. And that's what I do. Thoughts?
I think that's a pretty good way of going towards it. 'Cause it's like, I think I want comes across as a very like childish type of thing. Like, I want candy. I
Yep.
want, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But, I feel like adapting, like, I must do this or like, I will do this, it becomes more of a, it becomes more of a goal instead of like a whiny type of mentality.
For those people that actually will kind of get this a little bit, the words... hold on, let me gather my thoughts here. Oh gosh, I'm actually forgetting. I haven't actually talked about this in a long time. There's a... God, who is it? Oh my gosh. I forget. I forget it. I'll bring it up in the next podcast.
All right.
Or maybe
we just
or maybe
we
I'll
could just
remember it in 2
dedicate
seconds.
a whole nother podcast to like self-help stuff. So we probably keep going on it.
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, because there's a few things I could talk about. I could give people the cake speech.
Oh
Like,
boy.
Yeah, the cake. Like, I've given many people the cake speech that have like. I've ran into many a depressed soul in my life, and I'll put my hand on their shoulder and I'll say, "Let me tell you about cake."
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk more about like my kind of like egotistical, self-centered younger Krendor days,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of how I thought and how I've kind of grown since then.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, there's also a lot of people like that where they're just like, you just don't get me. If you don't deserve me at my best, you don't deserve me at my worst, like shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to kind of dive into that because I feel like most people at least go through a phase in their life where they have that, right?
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. I was going to say that the words I want, I said that they're a lie. They are a lie from the God of inspiration. And I think everybody has heard the quote, if you've been on the internet for a while, that inspiration is a lie or inspiration is a false god that should never be listened to. Because you're inspired by an advertisement for the new TV. You're like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. And it's gone. Like, you're inspired to write the book, and it's gone. And then it's like, oh, well, hold on. The Panthers game is on. You got to watch that first. And it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The God of inspiration is a liar, and he should never be listened to. But the God of discipline, although his words are very hard and harsh, he will never lie to you. That's why they always say, reject inspiration and embrace discipline. And so when you say the words I want come from inspiration, but the words I must come from discipline.
I think we could talk about that more next time too, because I still, even to this day, I struggle more with like just like discipline in itself, like disciplining, being like, all right, I need to work on this thing, or I need to read, or I'm gonna do this thing, and then I end up,
Oh, I think everybody does.
Yeah, and I think maybe we could just talk about ways to, better yourself in that way.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I mean, everybody, I think, struggles with discipline, even the most hardened Marine in the world. Because, let's be real, discipline is simply the act of doing the things we don't want to do, but we have to do it. But key words, we don't want to do it. So it's always like, ugh, like you have to kind of get over that mental hurdle to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's hard for anybody.
Oh, that reminds me of another book I read.
Oh, boy.
Which I'm going to write it down for next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do a whole new podcast, or a whole other podcast on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been pretty much an hour, and you said that you had to stream at like midnight, and it's currently midnight 05.
It sure is.
Yeah, so we'll probably have to wrap this up. And there's only one way to wrap up a podcast where we forgot to advertise our store and shit at the beginning, and that is to advertise our stores and shit.
Are you talking about Krensloth.com and the Nixxiom Corner store?
I think I am. Those things that are mysteriously in the description down below.
That's crazy. How'd they show up there?
Wow, that's insane. It's like magic and shit.
Wait, are you sure they're down there in the description? You should probably check.
They're in the description, krensloth.com, where you can get all your exciting Sloth Krendor themed merchandise, and the Nixxiom Corner store, where you can get amazing Nixxiom products and shit, which are actually about to be updated with some new stuff, and I'm going to be getting rid of some of the old stuff. So act now, because it's all going to be disappearing, and I'm going to make a post about it where I'm going to say, hey, this stuff's going to be gone in like 3 days, so get it now. Here's a discount code, blah, blah, blah. More info coming soon, but you guys better act quickly. Okay, and that's pretty much it.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Yeah,
but
dude.
There's a possibility Nixxiom didn't put those links in the description, so you should just check to make sure right now, and if they are there, you should click them.
That's right. Just make sure they work, please.
Yeah, just make sure they work.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it seems we got a plan for the next podcast. And guys, I mean, I'll say if you guys have any questions or any like things you'd like for us to talk about, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. I know that this is supposed to be the Two Nerds podcast and not like the Two Life Advices podcast, but hey, Like we're just going to talk about this, that, and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We're just nerds talking about life advice.
That's right.
All.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, I think that'll be it. I'll let you go stream, and I think I'm going to go sleep.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, I guess as always, you have the last word.
See ya.